Dr. Emily Parker's boots crunched against the red Martian soil as she made her way deeper into the newly discovered cave system. The beam from her helmet light caught crystalline formations that hadn't seen illumination in millions of years, sending prismatic reflections dancing across the tunnel walls. Behind her, the steady hum of the atmospheric processor provided a constant reminder that humans were never meant to be here. Yet here they were, pushing the boundaries of exploration as they always had. "Control, are you still receiving my feed?" she asked, adjusting the camera mounted on her helmet. The signal delay between Mars and the research base was minimal, but those precious seconds could feel like an eternity. "Clear as crystal, Dr. Parker," came the response from Dr. Hassan, her colleague monitoring the expedition. "Though I'm still not convinced these caves are anything more than natural formations." Emily smiled to herself. Hassan had always been the skeptic, but that's why she valued his input. The regular geometric patterns we detected from orbit suggest otherwise. Nature doesn't typically work in perfect hexagons. As she rounded another bend, her light caught something different, a smooth section of wall that seemed to absorb her beam rather than reflect it. Emily's heart rate quickened. After 3 months of excavation and exploration, this was the first sign of something truly artificial. "Hassan, are you seeing this?" She approached the wall carefully, her trained eye noting the subtle differences in texture and composition. "This isn't natural basalt formation. This was manufactured." She reached out to touch the surface, her gloved hand hovering just inches away when the wall suddenly came to life. A soft blue glow emanated from within, spreading outward in a complex pattern of interconnected lines. Emily stumbled backward, her training warring with her instinct to run. "Emily." Hassan's voice crackled through her calm. "We're getting some unusual energy readings. Maybe you should." The rest of his warning was drowned out by a low hum as the entire chamber illuminated. The air in front of Emily shimmered, and then space itself seemed to fold, creating a 3-dimensional projection that filled the cave. Stars, galaxies, and nebulae swirled around her in perfect detail. "My God," she whispered, watching as the stellar map zoomed in on specific points. Red markers appeared throughout the galaxy, pulsing softly. "Hassan, tell me you're recording this." "Every bit. But Emily, these star positions, they don't match any current configurations. This is either a completely inaccurate map, or it's ancient," Emily finished, her voice barely a whisper. "Really ancient." The map shifted again, focusing on one particular spiral arm of the galaxy. A single green marker pulsed where Earth would be, while countless red markers blinked around it. Text appeared, not in any known language, but in mathematical symbols that Emily recognized from her work in xenorchaeology. "Hassan, start running these symbols through the database. They look similar to the mathematical sequences we found in the Europa ruins, but these are complete. They're timestamps." Her hands shook as she began to understand the implications. These red markers, they're potential sites for developing intelligent life, and based on these timestamps, she had to steady herself against the cave wall. "We're not late to the party, Hassan. We're the first ones here." The projection suddenly shifted, showing a timeline of galactic development. Earth's marker pulsed steadily, while others slowly began to appear, like stars winking into existence in a darkening sky. The mathematical symbols told a story that would shake the foundations of human understanding. They weren't merely an emerging civilization among ancient ones. They were the ancient ones. As the full impact of the discovery hit her, Emily's mind raced with the implications. Humanity had always looked to the stars expecting to find teachers, mentors, advanced civilizations to guide them. Instead, they had found something far more profound and far more terrifying. They had found responsibility. The low hum of the hologram was interrupted by a new sound, an alert from her communication system. Multiple signals, previously classified as natural phenomena, were being reinterpreted based on the new data. They weren't random noise. They were the first radio transmissions of newly developing civilizations, reaching out into the cosmos. and humanity was the only one around to answer. Captain James Rodriguez stood at the helm of the UES Mentor, watching the crystalline surface of the planet below shimmer like a diamond caught in starlight. Proxima had been a prime candidate for intelligent life, but no one had expected to find a civilization quite like this. Multiple thermal signatures from the northern continent. Lieutenant Sarah Way reported from her station. The energy output matches what we'd expect from early industrial development, but the patterns are unusual. Rodriguez nodded, studying the holographic display. Where human cities had grown in circular patterns around water sources, the Lumini settlements formed perfect geometric patterns, like circuit boards etched into the planet's surface. "Sir," Way's voice carried an edge of urgency. "We're detecting severe geological instability along their primary settlement line. The vibrations from their industrial centers are causing chain reactions in the crystalline bedrock." The captain leaned forward, watching as red warning indicators spread across the display like cracks in ice. "How long?" "At current rates of industrial expansion. 2 months before the first major fracture. 6 before total structural collapse of the continental shelf." Way's fingers flew over her console. "They're literally shaking their world apart." Rodriguez felt the weight of the prime directive pressing down on him. The regulations were clear: no interference with developing civilizations, but they'd written those rules expecting to find younger species safely nested in their cradles, not teetering on the edge of accidental self-destruction. "New signal detected," Way announced. "It's, sir, I think it's a distress call." The bridge speakers came alive with a haunting crystalline resonance, a complex pattern of tones that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The ship's AI began processing the signal, attempting to decode what they were hearing. "They know they're in trouble," Rodriguez murmured. "They just don't know why." The view screen suddenly flickered, showing a closer view of one of the larger settlements. Among the geometric structures, a single spire rose higher than the others, its surface pulsing with internal light. As they watched, the light patterns began to change, forming complex sequences that the ship's sensors struggled to interpret. "Sir," Way's voice cracked with surprise. "That signal, it's not random. It's mathematics. Pure mathematics." Before Rodriguez could respond, a violent tremor shook the region they were observing. The spire's light pattern accelerated, becoming almost frantic. In the settlement below, they could see thousands of crystalline forms moving in coordinated patterns, their bodies reflecting and refracting light in what could only be an organized response to the crisis. "They're trying to save themselves," Rodriguez realized. "They just don't have the knowledge to understand what they're fighting against." He straightened in his chair, coming to a decision. "Ms. Way, prepare the geological survey data. Dr. Morris, I want a first contact package ready in 1 hour. We're not going to sit here and watch them die." "Sir," Way hesitated. The prime directive was written by people who never had to watch an entire civilization crack apart under their feet. Rodriguez finished. "Sometimes being first means writing new rules." As if in response to his words, a new signal emanated from the spire. The bridge crew fell silent as a shape began to form in the holographic display. A perfect representation of the UES Mentor, constructed entirely from patterns of light and shadow. "They see us," White whispered. "No," Rodriguez corrected, watching as the image was joined by mathematical symbols, questions written in the universal language of numbers and physics. "They understand us. They know exactly what we are, and they're asking for help the only way they know how." The ship's AI finally decoded part of the crystalline harmonics, a single phrase, translated from vibrations into words. "The sky holds wisdom. We listen. We learn. We live." Rodriguez touched the ship's communications panel. "Send them the geological data, coded in their own mathematical format. Show them what's happening to their world." He paused, watching as another tremor shook the surface below. "And let's hope they're as quick to learn as they are to observe." In the view screen, the spire's light pattern changed once more, this time forming an unmistakable symbol, a double helix, humanity's own signature of life, reflected back at them in crystalline splendor. The Lumini weren't just asking for help. They were offering to learn. First contact wasn't going to be about teachers and students, Rodriguez realized. It was going to be about survivors helping survivors, about sharing the hard-won wisdom of one young race with another. "Take us into low orbit," he ordered. "It's time to introduce ourselves properly." The holographic display in the United Earth Council chamber flickered with images of the ocean world Kepler 186f, its vast blue expanses broken only by scattered archipelagos. Dr. Emily Parker stood before the assembled representatives, her expression grim as she gestured to the spreading red patches in the planet's atmosphere. "The Meridians have no concept of what they're about to unleash," she said, her voice steady despite her frustration. "Their industrial revolution is releasing ancient methane deposits at an exponential rate. Within 5 years, their world will be caught in an irreversible greenhouse effect." From his seat in the opposition section, Dr. Marcus Wells leaned forward. "And you propose we simply hand them centuries of human technological advancement? Give them the solutions without letting them learn from their own mistakes? Like we learned from ours," Emily countered, bringing up images of Earth's own climate crisis from the previous century. "How many species went extinct while we learned our lesson? How close did we come to the point of no return?" The chamber erupted in murmurs as current readings from Kepler 186f appeared. Below the waves, vast cities of the Meridians pulsed with bioluminescent light, their aquatic civilization expanding rapidly through their world's deep trenches. They had mastered underwater metallurgy, using geothermal vents to power their industrial growth, unaware that they were releasing millions of years' worth of trapped greenhouse gases. "They're not just releasing methane from their industrial processes," Emily continued. "They've begun deep-sea mining operations. When they breach the methane clathray deposits," "Which they might not," Wells interrupted. "You're asking us to interfere based on a theoretical disaster." The chamber's main screen suddenly lit up with a new signal. The AI translation matrix kicked in, converting the complex patterns of bioluminescent pulses into text. "To the lights above. We see changes in our waters. Our eldest speak of warming currents. Our young swim in seas that grow strange. If you have wisdom, we would share songs." Silence fell over the chamber. It was the third time in as many months that the Meridians had broadcast such a message. They had no idea they were being watched, yet somehow they sensed they weren't alone. "They're asking for help," Emily said softly, not demanding it, not expecting salvation, but acknowledging they need guidance. "Isn't that exactly the kind of wisdom we'd hope to find in a younger species?" Wells stood, his expression conflicted. "Dr. Parker, I've reviewed your first contact proposals. You're not suggesting a simple technological exchange. You're proposing we establish permanent educational outposts, that we become directly involved in their development." "Yes," Emily admitted, "because anything less would be abandoning our responsibility. We can't just drop advanced technology in their laps and hope they figure it out. We need to teach them, guide them, help them understand not just the how, but the why." The chamber's sensors detected a new surge of methane release from Kepler 186. Emily watched the faces of the council members as they processed the data. She knew what they were thinking. Every civilization they'd discovered was facing its own crisis. The Lumini with their geological instability, and now the Meridians with their climate crisis. It was as if the galaxy itself was testing young species, presenting them with challenges that required either guidance or extinction. Perhaps, a new voice spoke up, "We should consider what we would have wanted, had we been in their position." Admiral Chen, veteran of the Lumini First Contact, stood. "When we looked to the stars, didn't we hope to find teachers? Now we find ourselves in that role, not because we're perfect, but because we've already faced these challenges and survived." Emily brought up one final image, a deep-sea meridian ceremony, captured by their observation drones. Thousands of their kind gathered in bioluminescent circles, their lights directed upward toward the surface, toward the stars, singing their songs into the void. "They're ready to learn," she said. "The only question is, are we ready to teach?" The council chamber grew quiet as the implications settled over them. Outside, Earth's night sky was filled with stars, and somewhere around each point of light, a young civilization was taking its first steps into an uncertain future. The decision they made today wouldn't just affect the Meridians. It would set the precedent for humanity's role in the galaxy's future. The Galactic Academy's grand opening was rapidly becoming what Dr. Emily Parker's assistant had dubbed the most expensive diplomatic disaster in human history. The Luna facility, designed to accommodate 12 different species simultaneously, was proving that theory wasn't always compatible with practice. The Orcs delegation just accidentally vented methane into the Verdant's photosynthesis chamber, her assistant reported, struggling to keep pace as Emily strode through the station's corridors. The Verdant are, well, they're literally turning blue with anger. "Redirect the Verdant to the backup chamber," Emily ordered, checking her tablet's environmental readings. "And someone please explain to the Orcs that their atmospheric relief valves need to be pointed toward the designated recycling units, not the nearest wall." Above them, through the dome's transparent panels, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black velvet of space. The sight usually calmed Emily, but today it served as a reminder of everything that could go wrong. They had one chance to get this right. A crystalline chiming filled the corridor, the Lumini's way of announcing their presence. The ambassador, a towering formation of living crystal named Symphony of Truth, approached with an urgent glow pulsing through their faceted form. Honored teacher, Symphony's thoughts translated directly into Emily's mind through their recently developed crystalline interface. "We have made a discovery that may assist with our current difficulties." Before Emily could respond, alarms blared through the station. "Unauthorized knowledge transfer in progress," the AI announced. "Multiple security protocols breached." Emily broke into a run, Symphony gliding alongside her. They reached the main lecture hall to find an unexpected scene. Every Lumini student was interconnected in a crystalline matrix, their bodies forming a living network that stretched across the room. And within their translucent forms, information flowed like light, human knowledge being absorbed, processed, and shared at incredible speeds. "We did not intend to cause alarm," Symphony explained as security officers poured into the room. "We discovered we could store your teaching materials within our matrices." The efficiency was compelling. Emily raised her hand, stopping the security team. "You're copying our educational database." "Not copying," Symphony corrected. "Understanding, sharing, and..." The crystal being's tone carried what could only be described as embarrassment. "Improving the organizational structure. Your filing system is quite human." A burst of laughter from the doorway drew Emily's attention. A Meridian observer floated in their mobile water sphere, their bioluminescent patterns indicating amusement. "The crystal minds seek patterns, as we seek currents," the translator rendered their lights into speech. "Perhaps they can help us understand your strange air thinking." "Air thinking?" Emily asked. "Your thoughts move like air, scattered and free. Ours flow like water, in streams and currents. The crystal minds think in lattices and matrices. Yet somehow we must all learn to think together." Emily looked around the room, seeing the problem and the solution with sudden clarity. They weren't failing at teaching. They were succeeding at something far more important. Each species wasn't just learning human knowledge. They were translating it into forms that made sense to their own ways of thinking. "Symphony," she said slowly, "could your people serve as a living database, not just storing information, but helping translate it between different species' thought patterns?" The crystalline being chimed with excitement. "It would be our honor. We have already begun categorizing the different cognitive approaches we've observed. The Meridians process information in fluid dynamics, the Verdant in cycles of growth and decay, the Orcs in terms of chemical reactions." "Dr. Parker," Her assistant burst into the room. The Verdant have started a photosynthetic demonstration in the main atrium. The Orcs are attempting to explain their atmospheric science through interpretive dance, and 3 other species are trying to establish a unified mathematical language using musical tones. Emily smiled. Good. Let them. Good. But the schedule. The schedule assumed we would teach them to think like humans, Emily said, watching as more species joined the impromptu cultural exchange. Instead, they're teaching us that there are as many ways to think as there are stars in the sky. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. In the center of the room, the Lumini continued their knowledge-sharing dance, their crystalline bodies now reflecting not just human knowledge, but the combined wisdom of 12 different approaches to understanding the universe. It wasn't chaos, Emily realized. It was evolution in action. The student archaeology team never meant to trigger a galactic crisis. They were simply following standard procedures, documenting the ruins they'd discovered on a seemingly unremarkable moon orbiting a red dwarf star. But when Kira Martinez, a third-year xenorchaeology student, brushed away centuries of dust from a metallic panel, everything changed. Professor Anderson, she called out, her voice echoing through the ancient chamber. I think you need to see this. The holographic warning burst to life, with no warning, filling the chamber with images that made hardened scientists step back in horror. A civilization, far more advanced than humanity, shone in its final moments as invisible death swept through their star systems. The timestamp made Professor Anderson's blood run cold. Get Dr. Parker on the line, he ordered. Now. Hours later, in the Academy's central amphitheater, Emily Parker stood before representatives of 12 species as she explained what they'd found. The warning beacon's message played behind her, its brutal clarity needing no translation. The gamma-ray burst that destroyed them wasn't random, she explained, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. It's part of a cycle. Every 50,000 years, when certain stars align in the galactic core, she didn't need to finish. The simulation playing behind her showed the devastation clearly enough. But the response she received wasn't what anyone expected. A Meridian elder, their bioluminescence pulsing with calm determination, spoke first. In our deepest trenches, the translator rendered their lights into words. Our ancestors survived great extinctions. The surface burned, but the deep waters protected. Perhaps they can again. Our crystalline matrices, Symphony of Truth added, their form resonating with purpose, were originally designed to channel and redirect energy. With modification, they could potentially deflect radiation. One by one, each species offered not panic or despair, but solutions drawn from their own unique perspectives and survival experiences. The Orcs, who had evolved in methane storms that would kill most species, understood radiation shielding in ways humans had never considered. The Verdant, whose photosynthetic bodies processed radiation daily, proposed biological solutions that defied conventional physics. You don't seem afraid, Emily noted, watching as the young species began collaborating, sharing ideas with an enthusiasm that belied the gravity of their situation. Why should we fear? Asked Symphony. We have faced extinction before, each in our own worlds. The Lumini nearly shattered our continent. The Meridians almost poisoned their seas. The Orcs survived storms that darkened their skies for centuries. But now, the crystalline beings form pulsed with warm light. Now we face this threat together, with the wisdom of many worlds. A young verdant scientist, their chlorophyll-based skin shifting through shades of green as they processed ideas, approached the central display. If we combine the Meridian's deep ocean sanctuary concepts with Lumini crystal technology, they suggested, manipulating the holographic models, we could create layered planetary shields. The Orcs' understanding of atmospheric radiation dispersion could be the key to making it sustainable. Emily watched in amazement as her students, no, her colleagues, began transforming their classroom into a crisis command center. The Lumini created a living database of potential solutions, their crystalline forms storing and analyzing data from all species. The meridians mapped safe zones throughout nearby star systems, their natural understanding of fluid dynamics perfectly suited to plotting stellar radiation patterns. Dr. Parker, Professor Anderson whispered, watching the collaboration unfold. I think we may have been wrong about our role here. Emily nodded, understanding. They had thought their job was to prevent these young species from making humanity's mistakes. Instead, they had created something far more valuable. A forum where different approaches to survival could combine into solutions no single species could have devised alone. The gamma-ray burst is coming, she said, watching as another simulation ran on the main display. But when it arrives, it won't find separated civilizations struggling alone in the dark. It'll find us united, ready, and far stronger together than we ever were apart. Around her, the combined intelligence and determination of 12 species worked to ensure that this time, when death swept through the galaxy, life would stand its ground and fight back. The massive planetary shield generator on Mars shouldn't have worked. By all conventional human physics, the combination of technologies was practically heretical. Crystalline matrices channeling energy through photosynthetic biological circuits, all housed within methane-cooled chambers designed by beings who breathe the stuff. Yet here it stood, humming with power, a testament to what different minds could achieve together. Dr. Emily Parker stood in the control room with Symphony of Truth, watching as the latest test readings came in. Through the reinforced windows, the Martian sunset painted the shield's translucent dome in shades of purple and gold. The Verdant's biological components are exceeding expectations, Symphony observed, their crystalline form reflecting the data streams. Their photosynthetic processes are not merely withstanding the energy flow, they're amplifying it. Life finds a way, Emily murmured, then caught herself smiling at the ancient quote. Though I doubt anyone imagined it would find this way. The chamber's door cycled open, admitting a floating sphere of water containing Ambassador Depth's Song of the Meridians. Their bioluminescent patterns spelled out urgent news before the translator could kick in. The deep-sea construction teams have completed the first Pacific Shield node, the translator rendered. But we've detected anomalies in the radiation readings from the galactic core. The calculations were wrong. We have less time than we thought. Emily felt her heart skip. How much less? Months, not years. Depth Song's lights pulsed grimly. The ancient warning beacon's timing calculations didn't account for gravitational lensing effects that the Orcs discovered in their latest stellar surveys. Symphony's crystalline form vibrated with sudden insight. The Lumini matrices, we could use them to create a faster-than-light warning network. Link all shield facilities instantly across the galaxy. Can you maintain coherence at that distance? Emily asked, already reaching for her communications panel. Alone? No, but the Meridian's quantum-entangled communication pods, combined with our matrices. Symphony's form pulsed with excitement. We would need to modify every shield generator. Immediately. Wait. Emily's hand hovered over the emergency broadcast button. The modifications, the energy requirements would be massive. The biological circuits might not handle the strain. A new voice joined the conversation. Hi Bloom, the Verdant chief engineer, their chlorophyll-based skin glowing with photosynthetic energy. Our circuits will hold, they assured through their translator. We have been experimenting, evolving. Our biological components are no longer merely channels for your power. We are becoming the power. Emily stared at the verdant scientist. Understanding dawning. You've been adapting. Actually evolving your own cellular structure to handle the energy loads. As we said when we first joined this project, life finds a way. High Bloom's skin rippled with patterns that the translator rendered as laughter. Did you think only humans could quote ancient wisdom? The moment was interrupted by a priority alert. The Orcs detection grid had confirmed it. The gamma-ray burst was beginning its final approach. What had once been an abstract threat was now a visible reality, a wave of death crossing the light years. "How many shield generators are operational?" Emily asked, bringing up the global status display. 62%, Symphony reported. Of those, 80% will require modifications for the new warning network. The deep-sea facilities can handle construction at crush depths now, Depth Song added. Our teams are ready. Emily looked at her assembled colleagues, beings who should have been primitives receiving humanity's wisdom, now standing as equals in the face of extinction. Each had brought not just technology, but perspective, ways of thinking that had transformed theoretical possibilities into practical solutions. "Send out the alert," she ordered. "All facilities, all species, all worlds. We modify everything, and we do it now." She turned to Symphony. "Begin transmitting the upgrade specifications through your matrix network. High Bloom, get your evolution protocols to every biological circuit team. Depth Song, we'll need your quantum pods redirected to handle the new load." As her colleagues rushed to their tasks, Emily caught a glimpse of Earth through the window, blue and vulnerable, in the gathering dark. They had come so far from those first cautious meetings, those careful attempts to guide without overwhelming. In trying to teach the younger races how to survive, humanity had learned perhaps the greatest lesson of all. That wisdom could come from the most unexpected sources, and that true strength lay not in having all the answers, but in being willing to learn new questions. Captain James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Mentor, now transformed almost beyond recognition. Lumini crystal matrices lined the walls, pulsing with data from 1,000 shield generators. A Meridian quantum pod hummed in the corner, maintaining instantaneous communication across light years. Even the air was different, a carefully balanced mixture designed by the Corax to optimize everyone's breathing. Shield network at 97% coverage, Lieutenant Wei reported from her station, now augmented with crystalline interfaces. "But we're losing contact with Generator Complex 47 in the Pacific Basin, the deep-sea facility." Rodriguez straightened. "That's one of our primary nodes. Without it, the entire Western Hemisphere's shield geometry will be compromised." Symphony of Truth completed from their position beside him. The Lumini had insisted on joining this mission, their crystalline form now serving as a living command and control center. Rodriguez touched his communications panel. "Dr. Parker, are you seeing this?" "Already on it." Emily's voice came through, accompanied by the sound of rushing water. She was aboard a Meridian deep-sea transport, racing toward the failing facility. "The verdant biocircuits are showing signs of strain. They're evolving faster than we anticipated, but the energy load." A sudden burst of radiation from the approaching gamma-ray burst washed over their outer sensors. Symphony's form flickered with absorbed data. 12 hours, they announced. The preliminary wave will reach Earth in 12 hours. The main burst follows 4 hours after that. Rodriguez made his decision. "I'm taking the Mentor down. We can use the ship's power core to stabilize the generator." "Negative," Emily cut in. "The pressure at that depth would crush your hull." "But," she paused, and Rodriguez could hear the smile in her voice. "I think I have a better idea. Remember how this all started? With the Lumini asking us for help with their geological crisis. Understanding dawned. Their vibration control technology. Symphony, could your people? Already calculating." The crystalline being chimed. "If we modify our harmonic resonance patterns, we could stabilize the facility's structural integrity long enough for repairs. But we would need a way to transmit the harmonics through water." A new voice joined the conversation. "Depth Song, their bioluminescent patterns bright with excitement. That is what Meridians do best." What followed was a symphony of cooperation that would have been impossible just months ago. The Mentor descended to minimum safe depth, its crew working in perfect coordination with their alien colleagues. Meridian engineers used their mastery of hydraulics to channel the Lumini's harmonics through the ocean itself. Verdant specialists remotely guided their living circuits through another round of rapid evolution, adapting to the changing conditions. In the facility below, Emily worked alongside a mixed team of humans and aliens, their movements choreographed by necessity and practice. "Biocircuits are stabilizing," she reported. "Symphony, we're ready for the final power synchronization." Through the facility's reinforced windows, they could see the ocean itself seeming to vibrate as the Lumini harmonics did their work. The failing generator's crystal matrix began to pulse in rhythm with the ship above, its power flows smoothing out, strengthening. "Generator Complex 47 back online," Wei announced triumphantly. "Shield geometry stabilizing across all sectors." Rodriguez watched the status displays as, one by one, the shield generators across Earth and a dozen other worlds synchronized their outputs. The Lumini matrices glowed with shared purpose, the Meridian quantum pods hummed with coordinated data, and the verdant biocircuits pulsed with evolved strength. All those months ago, Symphony mused, their crystalline form reflecting the glow of success. "When we first reached out to your ship, we thought we were asking for salvation. Instead, you taught us something far more valuable. How to save ourselves," Rodriguez suggested. "No," the crystalline being chimed. "How to save each other." Above them, through layers of ocean and atmosphere, the first traces of the gamma-ray burst were becoming visible to the naked eye, a faint glow that would soon become a tide of radiation capable of scouring worlds clean of life. But this time, life was ready, not as separate species huddling in fear, but as a unified force, each bringing their own strength to the coming battle. Emily's voice came through one final time. "Shield network at full power. All species reporting ready. Let's show the universe what the children of the stars can do when they stand together." The Galactic Academy's main hall had never been so quiet. Representatives from every species stood, floated or crystallized in place as they watched the final readings from the gamma-ray burst fade from the holographic displays. After 36 hours of tension that had felt like an eternity, it was over. They had survived. Dr. Emily Parker stood at the podium where just 1 year ago, she had given her first lecture to a room full of primitive species. Now, as she looked out at the assembled beings, she saw not students but colleagues. More than that, innovators who had taken humanity's basic teachings and transformed them into something far beyond what Earth scientists had imagined possible. "The SHIELD network performed beyond all theoretical limits," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "Preliminary data suggests we deflected 98% of the burst's radiation. The remaining 2% was well within our secondary defense's capability to handle." A ripple of bioluminescent celebration spread through the Meridian delegation. The Lumini crystalline matrices chimed in harmonic resonance, while the verdant's photosynthetic skin pulsed with vibrant colors of joy. "But that's not why I called this assembly," Emily continued, touching a control on her podium. The holographic display shifted, showing the SHIELD network from a different perspective. "During the burst, we recorded something unexpected. Symphony of Truth, would you share what your matrices discovered?" The towering crystalline being glided forward, their form now permanently modified by their role in the crisis. "The SHIELD network did more than protect us," they announced, their thoughts reaching all minds simultaneously through their advanced interface. It recorded the burst's full spectrum of data. In doing so, it captured echoes of other gamma-ray bursts from millions of years ago. Echoes that carry information about civilizations that came before. The hall erupted in excited discussion. High Bloom of the Verdant moved forward, their evolved form now capable of directly interfacing with both Lumini crystals and digital systems. "Our biological circuits didn't just survive the energy load," they added. "They learned from it. Every SHIELD generator has become a library of cosmic history." Captain Rodriguez, standing at the back of the hall, smiled as he watched his former first contact subjects teach humanity about the very cosmos they'd feared would destroy them. Lieutenant Wei, beside him, shook her head in amazement. "When we first found them," she whispered, "we thought we were the advanced ones." "We were," Rodriguez replied. "We just didn't understand what advanced truly meant." Emily raised her hands for attention, which brings us to the real purpose of this gathering. The Galactic Academy was founded to teach younger species how to survive. That mission is now complete, not because we succeeded in teaching, but because we succeeded in learning from each other. She touched another control, and the Academy's charter appeared in the air. As of today, the Academy is dissolved. In its place, we propose the establishment of the Galactic Council, where all species will have equal voice and equal responsibility for shepherding the next generation of civilizations we're detecting across the galaxy. Depth Song's water sphere moved forward, their lights pulsing with formal patterns. The Meridians accept this proposal, but with one condition. Their translator rendered their next words with perfect clarity. Dr. Parker must be our first student. Emily blinked in surprise. Student, you taught us to survive, Symphony chimed in. Now let us teach you to thrive. The Lumini have discovered patterns in spacetime that defy your physics. The Meridians understand quantum fields in ways that revolutionize your science. The Verdant have evolved biological technologies that challenge your definition of life itself. High Bloom's skin rippled with what had become recognizable as their species' version of laughter. Consider it a graduation ceremony, for all of us. As Emily looked out over the hall, she saw not the end of humanity's role as teachers, but the beginning of something far more precious. The gathered species were no longer divided into teachers and students, advanced and primitive. They had become what the galaxy truly needed, colleagues in the greatest scientific and cultural exchange in history. Then, as my first act as a student, she said, feeling the weight of the moment, I look forward to learning what wonders we'll discover together. Above them, through the Academy's crystal dome, the stars shone with new promise. The same stars that had nearly destroyed them now beckoned with infinite possibilities, waiting to be explored by civilizations that had learned the greatest lesson of all. That true wisdom lies not in knowing all the answers, but in being willing to learn from anyone who has questions to ask.